All right, racist.
Look, Supreme Court, I'm gonna break it down for you. Me, my wife, and my daughters, we all supposed to be free. We're not supposed to be slaves. And I'm gonna explain why.
Welcome back to class. Today's lecture will cover a very important court case and person. Dred Scott versus the United States in 1857. And the plaintiff in this case was Mr. Dred Scott. Dred Scott was born in 1799 in Southampton, Virginia. Dred Scott's born name was Sam, but once his younger brother passed away at a young age, Sam took his name. In 1836, Dred Scott married Harriet Robinson. They got married at Fort Snelling, which was said to be a free territory, and supposedly that made their marriage legal. Something very unusual for enslaved individuals because, again, that was considered illegal for enslaved people. And the area in Virginia where Dred was born was home to the Nottoway tribe. And oddly enough, the Nottoway people, who speak an Iroquoian language, they were described as dark-skinned. The Nottoway people were specifically described by William Byrd as the mahogany skins or the copper-colored ones of Nottoway Town. William Byrd was the son of a colonizer and was born on American soil. He is credited as the founder of Richmond, Virginia. But of course you can't find a place that wasn't lost, and was already built and established by the indigenous black tribes of Virginia. During this era, Nottoway Indians who lived on the reservations were not subject to paying taxes. The Nottoway Indians who lived outside of the reservations, which were reclassified as free colored people, were taxed. Taxation of free coloreds or non-reservation Indians was a means of control. And the free people who did not pay their taxes were then enslaved and forced into involuntary servitude, or what they taught us was slavery. They were enslaved and forced to work for anyone the sheriff or the tax collector assigned them to, which is identical to the prison system we have in place today. And now you know why an American would be enslaved on his own land. It was about control of the land, the indigenous people, and their resources. Taxes were just the excuse, which is precisely the reason we weren't told about slavery happening this way, because it's the same oppressive system we live under today. So no, these people weren't born into slavery. They were forced into becoming tax slaves. Dred Scott was said to have belonged to an Anglo family known as the Blow family. The father, Peter Blow, passed away, which caused Dred Scott to be transferred to another plantation. And this landed him a home with a military doctor. While staying with Dr. John Emerson, Dred Scott and his wife made their way to Illinois, which was considered a free state. Dred Scott's extended stay in Illinois and Wisconsin gave him the legal standing to make a claim for freedom. Both of those states made it clear that slavery was prohibited. Dr. Emerson died in 1843, and his wife sold off Dred Scott to an army captain. It was at this moment that Dred Scott attempted to purchase his own freedom for $300 from his slave owner's widow. The offer was refused, which caused Dred Scott to seek freedom through the courts. And as crazy as this sounds, he had to sue to gain his freedom. It isn't always some violent overthrowing where a man is running in shackles after attacking his slave owner in the middle of the night. Black Americans did not just take their freedom, they beat the racist idiots at their own game. Slavery never happened the way that they say it did. And if they told us the truth, they would have to show how many L's they've taken over the years. Dred Scott's trial began in June of 1847. During this trial, it could not be proven that Dr. John Emerson's wife owned Dred Scott. Yes, that's correct, no one owned him. He was indigenous and free, but he had been lied to for years by the Anglo colonizers. The following year, after the racists got involved, the Missouri Supreme Court decided that the case should be retried. In an 1850 retrial, the St. Louis Circuit Court ruled that Dred Scott and his family were indeed free. 2 years later, the Supreme Court stepped in again, reversing the decision of the lower court. The judge's written opinion stated that because Scott was a Negro-presenting enslaved Indian, he wasn't a citizen, and therefore had no right to sue. The decision also declared that the legislation which restricted slavery in certain territories was unconstitutional, basically saying that it was illegal for a city to consider anyone free. While the decision was well received by the slaveholders in the South, many Northerners were enraged. Abraham Lincoln was just about to call it quits with politics in this time, but once he heard about the Dred Scott case, he decided to run for president. This decision greatly influenced the nomination of Abraham Lincoln to the Republican Party and his subsequent election win, which in turn led to the South's secession from the Union. After the Civil War, Lincoln put into place the 13th Amendment, abolishing slavery. The same amendment that made slavery legal with imprisonment. Go figure. This amendment would eventually overturn the Dred Scott decision from the Supreme Court with the 14th Amendment. The same amendment intended for the protection of the true indigenous people's birthright citizenship of this land. Remember Taylor Blow from earlier? Dred Scott's former slave owner's son? After the Supreme Court decision, he purchased Dred and Harriet and set them free. Dred Scott died 9 months later, after his official freedom on paper in 1858. The entire U.S. history is a lie, and a joke, frankly. Through reading and simple research, one can unpack the entire history of our past. But it's only those with intelligence, competency, and literacy who can actually decipher the truth from the lie. Only a fool would believe what this country considers history. Well, thanks for watching. See you next time.